Chapter 6, Jesus and Me. The name of the class is Sex, Roles, and Communication. Gwen insisted I take it. Since it is an elective and sounded interesting, I did. The class is being taught by one of the leading lesbian activists in the city, and when I heard that, it screamed red flag to me. But Gwen told me the professor was a wonderful teacher and the experience would be good for me. I asked her what she meant by the experience. She simply smiled and told me that typically the ratio of women to men in that particular class was about 10 to 1.
How can a guy like you resist odds like that?
I love Gwen. I also miss her. She left state after the spring term, and by the fall of 1979, she had moved to Portland, Oregon. Her sister lives there and recently had a baby. Gwen wanted to be close to help. She is continuing her education at Portland State. Before leaving, however, she made me promise to take this class. She is entirely wrong about the ratio. It is 27 to 1. I am the only male. There was briefly one other man. His name is Tim Yu. He didn't say much. He is a business major needing communication credits, and this is one of the classes he chose. With all due respect to Tim, who seemed like a nice guy, I am alone now. It is me against them. I am to bear the sins of all mankind against the wrath of women. It's probably going to be a rout. Gwen was right about the professor, Dr. Monica Lewin. She is tall, with short cropped gray hair, shaped in a sort of wedge cut that many lesbians seem to prefer. She has a commanding and almost intimidating presence. But when she speaks, she seems like a nice woman, and were it not for her and one of the supportive women in the class, I probably would have dropped it after today's session. Because I was in the midst of the frying pan this afternoon. I didn't have time to take any notes, so I will attempt to reconstruct the events from the immediacy of memory. It won't be exactly as it happened, but as I'm likely to never forget this day, it's liable to be pretty close. It started innocently enough. We were instructed to put on name tags and introduce ourselves, state our major, and briefly explain why we were taking the class. I felt intimidated by the number of women. This was a brand new feeling for me. Part of it came from the numbers, but I also noticed how some women stared at Tim when he spoke. When a few of them caught my eye, they seemed to glare at me with something less than warmth. The vibe was not pleasant. It might have only been a few that were causing this feeling, but it was palpable. I've never felt like that in a classroom before. There was no incident, however, during the introductions. Then, Dr. Lewin asked,
"What are each of us raised to believe about what society expects from us? What do we expect from ourselves? What limitations does society place on us? What limitations have we already placed on ourselves? What is a woman? What is a man?"
I have never felt less inclined to speak than at that moment. I sensed anything I said would be subject to attack. As Dr. Lewin asked her last question, I understood exactly why Gwen wanted me to take this class. I thought, you fucking sneaky bitch. And I couldn't help but slightly giggle out loud. That's how it began. I was chuckling at what my very good bisexual female friend told me. Oh, the irony.
What the fuck are you laughing at?
Demanded a dyed blonde mullet-haired woman named Connie, 2 seats to my left. Something a friend said to me about this class.
And what was that?
She told me that taking this class would be a good experience for me.
Dave, why do you think she said that?
I considered the question for a few moments before responding. I think it's too soon for me to answer that, but I have a feeling I'm about to hear a whole bunch of theories from my classmates.
Okay. What do you think about what Dave's friend meant?
A woman named Grace, who looked a little but sounded a lot like Edith Bunker, said,
"Clearly his friend thinks he could benefit from the feminine perspective."
And what is the feminine perspective?
There was a slight pause, but it felt like the dam was beginning to break. A somewhat heavy-set, though very pretty brunette woman named Jessica bellowed,
That men are fucking assholes. And have always been fucking assholes. Whether they're fucking women or fucking assholes.
The room erupted in varied reactions, though most were guttural laughs of ribald delight. Even I laughed.
What the fuck are you laughing at?
Asked Connie again while glaring at me. It was a funny line.
Yeah? But that isn't the only reason you laughed.
Oh, I see. You're a mind reader, too? Excuse me, have we met before this class? What gives you such keen insight into what I think?
You're a man.
At that point, I took the bait. I was pissed. I see. So then, are all women clairvoyant? Or is that a special power endowed on angry lesbians? At that moment, I understood the sort of rage Andy Kaufman provokes when he wrestles women. Several stood up and looked like they wanted to hurt me, and a few were willing to volunteer for the assignment. I believe it was only because Dr. Lewin held up a hand and had such a strong influence on everyone that I was not jumped on the spot. As long as I live, I hope to never again face such anger. Honestly, I was frightened.
Ladies, take your seats and remain calm. This is a discussion group, not an avenging horde.
It could have fooled me.
Mr. Morehead, I would advise you to choose your words a little more carefully. Your point of view, however valid it is to you, is clearly in the minority here.
I nodded.
Ladies and gentlemen, every point of view is welcome in this class, no matter how inflammatory it sounds at first. Your reactions are also encouraged, but there will be no threats, and there will be no retribution other than verbal intercourse. That is how it is going to be, and if any of you are incapable of working within this structure, I suggest you leave now. But it is my belief that if you stay, you will all benefit from the experience. Dave, when you were growing up, what were you taught at home about the roles of women and men in the world? And ladies, please allow him to answer this question in full.
I took a deep breath and allowed my head to clear a little before answering. My mom was the typical stay-at-home mother. She was a housewife. Dad made the money.
Who made the decisions?
They both did.
Really?
As soon as she asked that, I realized my answer was not entirely correct. No, that's not completely right. When Dad made a decision, it was final. When Mom made a decision, sometimes it was final and sometimes she had to check with Dad.
Typical.
To the best of your knowledge, was it like this in the homes of your friends?
Yeah, for the most part.
Class, does this sound familiar to anyone else in here?
There was a murmur of agreement, but still a lot of tension.
I had no father when I was growing up.
Announced a trim and muscular woman named Rende, who sat to my immediate right.
He left when I was 2.
Did you have a father figure in your life?
Only the men Mom brought home, and until I got older, all they wanted to do was fuck and drink.
What changed when you got older?
They wanted to fuck me too.
Connie agreed.
It was the same thing in my house. Fucking and drinking and fighting were the only things men wanted to do.
I thought, but there isn't a drink ever made to make them want to fuck you.
Yeah, what's that all about? Why are men all so preoccupied with sex? Even when they're kind of nice, I always feel like they're being that way in order to get laid.
An African-American woman named Marlene gently chided,
Hey, honey, I feel like the men sometimes. It isn't only men who are nice in order to get laid.
"Thank you."
Fuck you.
"No, thank you. It's a kind offer, but I'll pass."
Don't fucking talk to me shit for brains and stop looking at my tits.
"Don't flatter yourself. I was looking at your name tag."
Oh, really? Then what's my name?
"Toro."
Mr. Morehead.
Dr. Lewin began, but before she could continue, a single laugh erupted from the back of the room. It started with a snort and ended with a cackle. It was a huge, obnoxious laugh. It was a wonderful thing to hear. We all turned, and it was a shapely, auburn-haired woman named Cynthia. Nice tits, I thought. Connie asked.
What's your problem?
Cynthia admonished.
You are. I mean, give the guy a break.
That's enough.
I turned and looked directly at Connie. "Connie, that was a bullshit thing I said. I'm sorry. But I wasn't staring at your tits." Connie did not acknowledge the apology, but it temporarily stifled her.
Could we please get back to societal expectations when we were children?
You know what's strange? When I was a girl, I was called a tomboy. I liked playing with guys, and they were very accepting of me. Most girls thought I was weird, but the guys were okay. It wasn't until puberty that guys started making fun of me for hanging out with them. The girls still thought I was weird. I was never into the stuff they were into. Makeup, fashion, trendy things. My mom thought I was weird too. I didn't really have a role model until I moved to San Francisco.
Jessica asked,
Is that when you realized you were gay? I'm not gay. I'm attracted to men and I'm still a tomboy. You are fucking weird.
Marlene scolded.
Girl, give it a rest.
Cynthia said to Brenda,
Something that's interesting is that the boys never accepted you before puberty. A friend I work with is gay. He was never interested in what other boys wanted to do, and they never accepted him. But neither did most girls. Everyone, including his mother and father, thought he was weird.
I turned around, faced Cynthia, and asked, Has he found friends as an adult?
Oh, hell yes. San Francisco is heaven for him.
There was a murmur of consent to that statement.
So could someone please answer my question about why men are always trying to get laid? Because men are fucking animals.
Several women agreed with Connie's assertion. I was still looking at Cynthia, but I noticed Grace was staring at me and expecting me to answer her question. I glanced at Tim, who had made himself as small as possible while fingering his pencil. I looked around the room, and almost everyone was staring at me. I looked at Cynthia again. She had a mischievous little smile on her face. I looked outside the window and into the courtyard separating the hallways of the HLL building and watched a blind man walking with his seeing eye dog. That's when it came to me. Connie was right. Nature films. That's what it's like. Do you remember seeing sex in nature films? The Jane Goodall stuff. National Geographic presents The Wild Horses of the Rockies, you know, films like that. Do you remember them? Do you remember how sex is in those films? When does sex happen in those films, or in nature? Is it when the female comes of age, or is it when the male comes of age?
The male,
answered Cynthia, her smile becoming something more than mischievous. That's right, I said, smiling back at her, wondering if something had just started between us. Then I continued. In nature, the first day a male comes of age sexually, he's probably going to get laid. Or at least he's trying to get laid. He can't help himself. He can't control it. At no point does any living thing tell him to stop. In fact, he better hurry up and get to it, or some other creature in his tribe will beat him to it. But for people, for men, when we come of age, we can't help it or control it. We are told to do exactly that. We're told we have to wait. We're told we have to suppress our natural instincts. We are made to feel ashamed. We can't control the way we feel any more than the ape, horse, or any other male. We're at our sexual peak on day 1, and then it only becomes a question of how long we can keep it up. I'm sorry, that wasn't meant as a joke. My point is that I think the more we are made to suppress our natural instincts, the harder it gets. I was starting to feel embarrassed. I don't know if it's as simple as I just portrayed it. I would never dream to understand how it is for women. I do remember, however, in my high school sex education class, there was a lot of time spent discussing a woman's period and hardly any time at all discussing an erection. And I know a lot of men would agree with what I just said. It's very difficult. It's frustrating. I think sometimes that frustration can turn us into, like you said, Connie, animals. I turned around, faced the front, and felt flush. There was a pause. And then several people, including Dr. Lewin, applauded me. When the applause ended, she added,
Thank you, Dave. That was brave and insightful.
Yeah, okay, that's great. But before we give him his Boy Scout medal and elect him president, I'd just like it to be known that my sexual desire has also been strong from the start. I don't think men have a monopoly on that.
Marlene added,
That's what I'm talking about. I like it. I like it a lot. I want it. I'm telling you, when I get home tonight after this class, my boyfriend's gonna put out or get out.
There was class-wide laughter at this, but something about it bothered me. I said, that's great, but if I said the same thing about making a woman put out, would I have gotten the same reaction? Brenda admitted,
Probably not.
Connie added,
But then you're an asshole.
"Why do you say that? You don't even know me."
I've heard about you.
"You've heard about me?"
Yeah, girls talk.
Cynthia scolded.
Oh, that's just fucking great. Gee, Connie, thanks so much for reducing every woman in this room to a stereotype. Fuck you, bitch, I'm sick of your shit.
Warned Connie as she clenched her fist, again looking like she might pounce.
Are you threatening me? So, what is it exactly that's separating you from the men you lampoon? You're just as bad as you portray them to be. So far in this class, you're even worse.
The room was threatening to ignite. I glanced at Dr. Lewin, and she was just about to intercede when we all heard, quite clearly,
"Stop it! All you stupid people!" It was Tim, my man Tim, taking up the good fight because he'd had enough. Damn, I was proud to be a guy. Tim snapped his pencil in half, grabbed his books, got up,
then left. That was the last any of us saw of Tim in that class.
Well, that's two less balls in here.
Not counting yours, of course.
Stop!
Lord have mercy, this beats the soaps.
A nervous laughter ran through the room. There was a long pause while everyone considered where to go from there.
Class, there are a lot of interesting dynamics at play here and much to think about. I suggest we break for the day and allow ourselves the opportunity to reflect. I would also like each of you to write a brief paper summarizing today's events. The paper will not be graded, but it is required if you want to continue in this class. Lastly, I would like to speak with Connie and then Dave in my office. I want to speak with each of you separately. Connie, if you could come right now, and Dave, please be outside my office in half an hour. To all of you, this was an excellent and enthusiastic session. If we can maintain this energy throughout the semester, we have a chance to do some very good work. See you on Thursday.
It was a good call. We needed air and space, and we weren't going to get any in that room today. I let the class file out. I was spent. I felt like I'd been in a fight. I literally felt like the last man standing. Tim was gone. If I stayed, it was going to be me and me alone. Well, maybe not quite alone. Jessica walked past by me on her way out and said,
You're still a fucking asshole.
Oh, she was smiling when she said it. Thank you for sharing. I slightly smiled back at her. I felt a soft hand on my shoulder, and then Cynthia asked,
How you feeling?
Beat up.
You want to get some coffee before you meet with Monica?
I considered the offer and responded, I suppose coffee would be better than beer.
I could go for a beer.
So down to the famous pyramid-shaped student union we walked, and soon found ourselves sucking down our beers like survivors of some kind of wreck. We talked about the class. Cynthia got me to admit that just before I began my explanation on the male sexual dilemma, I actually was staring at her tits. She was okay with that. Suffice to say, we started a friendship. My meeting with you, Dr. Lewin, is not really part of this paper. I will say this. You and your class are giving me much food for thought. Don't worry. I don't think we'll have a repeat of today. Of course, I can only speak for myself. You say Connie won't be as abusive in the future, and I wish you the best of luck in facilitating that. Time will tell. But I welcome the challenge. It beats the crap out of most classes I've ever had. And I will think a great deal about what you said, about what can rise from the ashes of demolition, being open to growth, change, and possibility, about starting to view myself through the eyes of others, especially those who don't share my point of view. I don't think I have much to worry about in that regard in your class. One last note, however, that I think you'll find amusing. Maybe you'll find it insulting, I don't know, but I'm going to include it. I called Gwen tonight and told her everything that happened. She laughed her ass off. I told her the next time I see her, she owes me a grudge fuck.